Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Mike. Today we will be talking about the upcoming Criterion announcements for February 2019, the death of Filmstruck, and what comes next for film fans. Then we will be moving into our Casually Criterion review for Tokyo Story, directed by Yasujiro Ozu. Spine number 217.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those episodes where I'm glad that we decided to break the spine order thing, because Tokyo Story has been something I've been wanting to watch for a long time, and it would have been forever for us to get to 217.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's such a good movie that it's worth skipping for sure.
Skipping two, you mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, don't skip the actual movie.
The exact opposite of what you said, actually.
Yeah.
Take my intentions, not my words, Mike.
Will do, Chris.
If you want to stay up to date with what we're watching next, if you want to participate in our polls to pick our next Criterion film, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can also email your thoughts, your questions into casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget to go onto iTunes, give us a review, hit subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, and all that good stuff.
Do us a solid.
Yeah, tell your movie buff friend about us, too.
Okay, and with that, are we ready to move into what is on our minds this week?
Of course.
I'm always great. It's always great to know what's on your guys' minds, so let's do it.
Did you say I'm always great?
Well, that too. I am
Not always.
great. Are you saying that I'm not always great?
Yeah, I'm saying sometimes you drag this segment out too long.
You mean like right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, guys, so some sad news happened recently in the film world that a lot of movie nerds everywhere seem to be pretty sad about, and that is that Filmstruck is no more.
No.
I know. Which is a shame, because although I did not subscribe to it, I wanted to. I actually was signed up for their notifications for them to send me a message whenever they got their application on something that I actually watched TV on, you know?
Right, like on PS4 or a Fire
exactly.
Stick or something like that?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have anything anymore that would have worked with their stupid app, right? So that's literally the only reason I did not already have it. I even signed up for it at one point because it used to work on my Chromecast TV, and then my TV got an update, and then I messaged them on Twitter, and they were like, yeah, sorry, we don't support devices that have Chromecast built in anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Mike. It was the thing that I wanted to subscribe to, and I would have gladly given my $15 to, or however much it was. But the accessibility of the apps was the thing that held me back.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch it on my phone.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I even tried to get a thing where I could project it onto my TV through my phone, but all the apps that I got always blacked it out and made it hard to actually do it. I couldn't watch the screen. So
I was able to watch Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and then after I watched one movie, the whole app updated or something, or my TV updated, one of those two things, and it no longer worked with the Chromecasting, and it was just a super huge pain. So I feel like they did this to themselves. This day and age, if you're going to launch a streaming app, making it work across all devices and having it available on everything just comes with the territory.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just that's square one, right? If you can't get an app on every basic popular streaming device, you will not make it.
Yeah, it's like us making a podcast and only letting it be on iTunes.
Yeah, and not putting it on any other podcast platform. That would be ridiculous. So the good news is, for those of you Criterion fans who don't want to wait for whatever pops up next for the Criterion Collection, you can go to your app store now on pretty much any device that I can think of, most devices, and get something called Kanopy. And that's Kanopy spelled with a K. They have lots and lots of Criterion Collection movies, and they also have every A24 movie. They even have First Reformed from earlier this year. They have lots of indie movies, lots of old Cary Grant movies, lots of westerns, all kinds of stuff. And it's all free. But you need a library card. I think you can sign up without a library card and maybe pay something, which would be good too to support them. But also, library cards are free. So I got my stepmom to actually just send me a picture of her library card. And I signed right up. But I will, in all seriousness, go get my own library card soon. So she can sign up for it, because it also has lots of documentaries that she would like. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's only like certain libraries that have subscribed to Kanopy that allow you to do like the free sign up. The Houston library like doesn't have that, so I was unable to sign up for free.
Way to drop the ball, Houston. You're a big city and you have no excuse.
None excuse.
I hope Houston is listening. Did you see how much it would cost to sign up without doing the library subscription?
No, I didn't. I didn't see that option anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't even looked really, to be honest with you.
Maybe that exists. I don't know.
If it does, it's totally worth it, because I don't know. This is more my speed. Like, more than like Hulu or Netflix. This has more movies that I'm interested in.
The only like option I saw on there was literally like sign up with your library card for free.
That's such an interesting thing. You know, libraries, everything's free at those. Is it only a matter of time before there's a library streaming service? You know, like through your Kindle, like you can get books like that. And
I think that's already happening, actually, because I went to the library pretty recently and there were books they didn't have there, but you can check out digital versions, but they only have like so many licenses for, like, say they have like 3 licenses for like a digital copy of, you know, Catcher in the Rye. Well, only 3 people can have the digital version, like, quote, checked out, unquote. You know what I mean?
Wait, how do you give it back?
I think you're like, I'm done with this, or at a certain like time it deletes off your Kindle or whatever.
Huh, that's interesting.
I would guess. I didn't actually do it because I don't have like anything I like to read books on electronically.
Yeah. I have an iPad that I wouldn't be opposed to reading books on, but I certainly wouldn't want to read them on my phone.
Yeah.
But hey, so back to Kanopy real quick, guys. I just want to say, here's a little taste of all the variety that Kanopy has to offer. All right, we have The African Queen. We have The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks.
And Corey Feldman.
Directed by Joe Dante.
Yep. We have The Great Silence, which is a crazy awesome spaghetti western, which is super rare, and it's good to see it getting some love. Plenty of westerns, all kinds of documentaries. So, yeah, man, this app is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can't wait to be able to sign up for it one day.
It's available for the PlayStation 4 and through all those.
I don't know about the PlayStation 4, but it has the Chromecast casting capability built in within the iPhone app, so it's able to do what Filmstruck apparently was not.
And also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Criterion Collection themselves announced that they're going to launch their own streaming service that is going to stream a ton of the collection, if not all of it, that they like currently have rights to. And I think it's going to also include some of the like programming stuff they did with Filmstruck, like some of those aspects that Filmstruck had, which is pretty cool. But that's like another streaming service I got to pay for eventually if I want it.
I would rather them just join back in with Hulu, to be honest with you, or put all their movies on Netflix. I want Criterion movies. I want access to them. But, like, man, I don't want to be nickeled and dimed, you know? I don't want to pay $15. Like, Filmstruck wasn't worth it because their app wasn't good enough. I fear that the Criterion app might have the same fate because I don't see it having more money than Filmstruck, right? It seems more niche than even Filmstruck was.
Yeah. Hopefully it's available. The app is readily available for everybody. And there are a lot of things that I don't want to give my money to, like the Disney Plus service, which I'm sure I'm going to. But I feel good, actually, giving my money to the Criterion thing because I feel like that's a good thing, right? So I don't necessarily mind that.
Not that I pirate or condone pirating, but I would feel way worse pirating all the content from the Criterion Collection than I would from, the biggest company in the world.
The Disney.
You've been tagged somewhere about a red flag in a Disney office because you mentioned their name.
Oh, no.
Chris said it first.
Anyways. All right, so hopefully the new Criterion app will be awesome. Until then, check out Kanopy. Go to your local library. Get a library card.
Yeah. You also get free books.
Yeah, read.
So, win-win.
There's no downside to this. Thanks, libraries. Except for Houston's library, apparently.
Screw you, Houston.
Okay, so are you guys ready to move into the Criterion release announcements for February of 2019?
Yeah.
I wait for this every month.
So I'm just going to read them all off real quick. So first we have February 5th, we have Shame from Ingmar Bergman. Then February 12th, we have 2 films, La Vérité by Henry Georges Clouzot. And then we have Berlin Alexander Platz from Werner Werner Fassbinder. Then on February 19th, we have Death in Venice from Luchino Visconti. And lastly, but not leastly, February 26th is To Sleep with Anger from Charles Burnett.
Cool. So how many of these have you guys seen?
0.
Yeah, there was a period when Berlin Alexander Platz was released originally. I really wanted to buy it and watch it because it's like a long German TV show. I just never could justify the price tag, and I don't think back then they even had the 50% off Barnes & Noble sales, so I never got around to that one.
Well, the only one I've seen is Shame by Ingmar Bergman, which is great. And so it's cool to see a re-release. Whenever I saw it, it was in some like Ingmar Bergman box set before Criterion had access to a lot of like the lesser Bergmans, or like lesser known Bergmans, I should say. So
Yeah.
Shame was like with like in a box set with like The Serpent's Egg and Persona before Criterion released Persona, and a few others. But anyway, I think Shame definitely was one of the standouts in that box set that I had, though. It was one of my favorite Bergman movies that I've seen.
So yeah, I haven't seen any of the films. I think maybe the one that excites me the most is La Vérité by Clouzot, because based on the 2 films of Clouzot's I've seen, I'm a big fan of his, which are those 2 films would be Diabolique and The Wages of Fear.
Yeah, Diabolique and Wages of Fear are both excellent movies.
Yeah. And
especially Diabolique, in my opinion. I love that movie.
They're both awesome, and so pretty much interested in anything else by him, and Criterion having one more film by him excites me.
He seems like an exceptionally gifted director at building tension, for sure.
And it has Brigitte Bardot in it, so...
Ooh la la.
That was
great.
Yeah, I would like to see To Sleep with Anger, too. This is actually a movie that I only heard about through the Criterion drawing. But it's got Danny Glover in it, and it seems kind of like a underseen gem that sounds pretty cool. And it's got a cool cover.
Underseen, I believe, 90s gem, which the 90s has some interesting movies, like some interesting lesser-known movies that I've seen, so maybe this is another one.
Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, I think the 90s was a better decade for movies than the 80s.
Oh, for sure.
Controversial.
The 80s was more blockbuster.
Well, I think the 90s had that too, but 90s also had like that
The
indie movement that busted out on the scene in the very beginning.
The Sundance Film Festival. I think the 90s and the 70s have a lot more in common than the 80s.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Cool. So does that do it for the Criterion announcements? Does anyone have anything else they want to say?
No, that's it for me. Not a lot to say about this one, other than it's a bunch of films to like put on my radar now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm glad you pointed out that Clouzot did Wages of Fear and Diabolique, because that makes me want to see La Vérité a lot. All right, are we ready to move into our review of Tokyo Story?
Yes, Suhiro Otsu.
Yes, I always ready to talk about Tokyo Story.
Okay, so before we get going on Tokyo Story, I just want to let you guys know that since this movie came out in 1953, we're just going to move straight into spoilers. No non-spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the movie, press pause now. Go watch it. Come back. Finish listening.
So Tokyo Story was directed by Yasujiro Ozu, and it stars Chishu Ryu and Chiko Higashiyama.
Yeah, Higashiyama would be my guess.
Higashiyama? That sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're close
to that. The IMDb synopsis says, an old couple visit their children and grandchildren in the city, but the children have little time for them.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what this movie is about.
To a T.
All right, guys. So, who wants to go first? How about someone who has not seen it before, which is either one of you two?
No, I'd seen it before.
I think I think I'm the other one who hadn't seen it before.
Justin.
Yeah.
What's up, man? What'd you think of Tokyo Story?
Okay, so as you just said, this is my first time to watch Tokyo Story, and it's actually my first time to watch any Ozu film. So this is the first Ozu experience, the first Tokyo Story experience, and it's been a film that I've wanted to watch like forever, like since I first started exploring foreign films and the Criterion Collection.
Sidebar. You finally did what Roger Ebert said everyone who loves movies do, or does, which is everyone who loves movies eventually gets to Ozu.
That's true. I'm there.
So you've finally done it.
Does that mean I finally love movies now? Or
Yeah, I think so.
Movies?
It means for the first time in your life, you love movies.
Wow.
How
That's
does it
amazing.
feel? Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
I wish you'd have told me that before, because I felt like maybe I would have noticed the change whenever I watched the film.
Yeah.
Been looking
I'm sorry. Sorry. Sidebar over. Proceed.
Okay. So I mentioned this film, way back when we were doing some of our first episodes of the podcast. And it was the movie that, like, out of all the Criterion Collection, I was finally looking forward to watching. So that said, I do want to talk about, like, my review in the context of something else that Roger Ebert has said, because I'm currently reading his book Life Itself, which are like his memoirs. And there's a whole chapter where he's writing about Ingmar Bergman, and there's a little paragraph where he's talking about when he was first like reviewing films, he went to see Persona and he had no idea what to say about it. Like it was kind of this impenetrable film to him, and he didn't know what to write about it. And so he ended up just starting out by saying, like, I was sitting in a dark theater and like the light came on to like this dark gray screen and started projecting light and shadows onto it, and just kind of talking about like the way that he felt. And I think that's like a really appropriate thing, and kind of like serendipitous that I read that at the same time around that I watched Tokyo Story, because I think what happened to me while watching Tokyo Story was less like watching the film and in like getting wrapped up in the story and like the characters themselves. What was happening to me was more that like the film was making me reflect on like my own life and the people in it and my relationships with like my family. I basically, like, I'm watching the film, I'm looking at the shots, paying attention to composition, I'm reading the subtitles for the dialogue, but like my mind is just continually wandering to my own life, right? Like I'm thinking about my grandparents, my parents, I'm thinking about, the times that I spent with my grandfather shortly before he passed away, and, also like the times that I didn't spend with him, or like I chose not to like go visit home because I was busy. I found myself thinking about like my grandparents, my parents, all that sort of thing, and reflecting on my own life more than I was thinking about the actual movie. A lot of the times, and I think that's part of what makes the movie interesting, and specifically because like the movie's so slow, right? Like I don't think you can argue that it's not a slow movie, but I think it's intentional, and I think part of that is that like Ozu is specifically giving us time to reflect on everything that's happening in the story, and like also reflect on the emotions, and like giving you that time to think about yourself, apply the emotions to yourself, and just basically think about whatever the film is making you feel, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of like what it sounds like to me that you're describing is exactly what I experienced both times I watched it. But what I would say is like it's so slowly paced that he is giving you time to be in your own head.
Yeah, exactly.
And not miss a beat.
Right? I would call it meditative.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Meditative. Perfect. You can think about your grandfather or your grandmother or your mom or your dad, and you can be in your own head for minutes at a time and then be like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. And then you could snap right back into it and you haven't missed anything.
Yeah, like that time is there, and like the film is intentionally slow paced. I think for that reason, that's what this movie does. And in some ways that's what like the style and the storytelling is wanting you to do. So basically I really like the film for that reason. Like it didn't seem slow to me at all. Like I know from like a technical standpoint looking at it that it's slow because it's just long, and like the shots aren't cutting around to a million different shots, and it's not fast paced, but like I'm thinking so much that it doesn't feel very slow.
Yeah, no, totally. I think the camera only moves like one time in the whole movie.
I think I counted twice, but I also read somewhere else that it's only once.
Yeah, it's once or twice.
So,
it can't be 3 times. I refuse to believe it's 3 times.
I don't think it's 3. But anyways, yeah, I really like the film. I love the story. The pacing of it's great. The performances are great. I love that it's a slice of life film, and there's really no melodrama in it. And it reminded me a lot of like the neo-realist Italian films like Bicycle Thieves, which is a film movement that I really love. And Bicycle Thieves is a movie I love. And this was like 5 years after Bicycle Thieves that it was released. So, yeah, I was into it. I dug it a whole lot. Mike, what did you think about your second viewing of it?
Yeah, so on my second run-through of Tokyo Story, surprise, surprise, I still think it's great. I think this movie, almost more than any other movie I've ever seen or heard of, this movie seems almost unanimously loved among anyone who has seen it. Like, it may not be the most seen movie amongst people that I know, but I don't know anyone who's ever said they didn't like this movie. And I think it's because of what you're saying. You can't help but compare it to your own life. You just can't. Mm-hmm. I think the sadness comes from the relatability. You kind of wish it wasn't so dead on with just how people are, but it feels so true. It feels like a movie that will get better and sadder as you get older. Time is cruel, and it's hard on relationships. I'm really feeling like I will probably get into some more Ozu soon, because on my second watch through this time, man, I was just a mess. I was emotional the whole time. There were multiple times whenever it's not anything overtly sad happening, but I was just an emotional mess because I was thinking about my grandma and, how I need to call her more or spend more time with her, or call my mom, or like tell them thank you and I appreciate you. It just,
right.
It makes you want to be better than you are.
Well, to me, like the sadness and emotions, like when I was feeling them, weren't really coming from the story and the movie itself, right?
Well, it's what it inspires in you, because the movie itself is very understated. Like, even the drama doesn't feel melodramatic to me. But we can get into that later.
Sure.
I would like to hear from Chris. What'd you think, man, on your second watch through of Tokyo Story? Where you at?
I can't help but echo everything that you guys have said. One of the things you said, Mike, was, and both you too, Justin, but how you can identify with these people so well, the way it's made. It's a universal story. What I find interesting is that they talk about it's Japan almost immediately after World War II. And in a lot of ways, we couldn't be any more different than we are from them, But yet somehow there's this human element that's universal, and it gets us, and it doesn't matter where we're from or who we are. It's this universal feeling, and it'll floor you no matter who you are, right? And it'll knock you out. Yeah, and you guys both talked about it. The way it's paced, the slow pace of it, is almost mesmerizing to me. You're right, there's no melodrama in this, but it's the way he kind of shows the mundanity of life, the things that you do every day, and this. Yeah, it's really good, and it just kind of mesmerizes you and hypnotizes you into the story. At least that's what I feel. This meditative state, really. The other thing is, it's Tokyo Story. It's pretty intimidating to talk about. What can I say that hasn't been said already about it? Except for what I feel, I guess. Some of the things I really found interesting this time was just the way it's framed and shot, and I'm sure we'll get into that more, but it's just endlessly fascinating the way it's shot, and the cuts and the takes and stuff like that. I've really felt that was very special, and I don't know that I've seen it done that much more, and actually kind of reminded me of First Reformed, or should be vice versa, but the way First Reformed's kind of shot up in the 4x6. Anyways.
Right. Well, and also, most of the shots in this movie are very low. Like, the camera is sitting, like, almost on the ground, looking up at people a lot. And it makes them fill the frame. And also, another thing I noticed is there's always stuff in the foreground. Like, a lot of the shots in the house always have, like, a bucket in the foreground or a stool or
something to give it depth.
Yeah, or they're filming someone through a doorway or an archway of some kind, and they can put them within another kind of frame, in the distance. And so there's always like something going on. So you're always like trapped in this house, seeing these people up close and big in the frame.
The way the camera's set up, I think it was Roger Ebert. There's a lot of Roger Ebert talk in this, but I either read it or he had a commentary on the disc for Tokyo Story. I'm not sure, but it's set so low, you're like a family member sitting in there with them, looking at them. Looking
on the ground, looking right at them at dinner or something.
Yeah, it's like on that eye level of where a person's eyes would be if they were sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
Like viewing it. I read the same thing.
Oh, okay. Who was it that said it?
I saw it in a Roger Ebert article, but he was quoting somebody else.
Okay, that's probably
so I don't remember who the somebody else was.
Well, and we can move in, but what I want to say is there's a reason that this movie, everybody calls this movie a masterpiece. It is, and I cannot disagree that it. Wait, I didn't say that right. I cannot disagree with him that it's a masterpiece. It's just really great. I think this might be my favorite Criterion film that we've watched all year.
Ooh.
Yeah, this kind of has like an importance about it, right? Like the only other film that I can remember so far on the podcast where we talked about it and it just feels intimidating and you don't want to sound stupid, and ultimately you just kind of have to acknowledge the movie's greatness, and that was 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right? And this movie has that same feeling to it. It couldn't be more different than 2001, but also there's a certain sparseness about it and a certain mental invigoration that they both give you, right? Like if you really sit there and you're in the right time and the right place in your life to appreciate this movie, it's just great. You can't deny it to a certain extent, right?
I think like the place where the movie shines the most to me, and the thing that I kind of find myself endlessly fascinated about it by, is what we're talking about with like the camera work. Like I think we've kind of talked about it and almost moved on, but the one thing I want to say is I think like if you want to understand composition and watch something that'll make you pay attention to composition and appreciate it, like I think the film is pretty much perfectly shot, right? Like every time we're cutting to like a new angle, it feels so like intentional. Like there's not a lot of like wasted shots, in my opinion. Right,
no,
like
it's
so intentionally shot. It's so intentionally composed. Like we said before, I think the reason that the camera only moves twice is because everywhere else, like the shot is composed so perfectly that it doesn't need to move. And to me, that's so impressive. And like, I could almost watch this movie just on silent, like with no audio, and like just watch the composition and the framework, because like it's just beautiful, and it's like minimal way.
Yeah, there's never any over-the-shoulder shots or anything either.
Right.
When doing some research about this movie, I came across a lot of comparisons to Wes Anderson.
Yeah, I've seen some of those comparisons before.
Yeah, and I can see it. Very symmetrical shots that don't move a lot, very carefully framed. There's always very carefully placed items within the frame, like laying around on stuff,
Right.
Calendars on walls and posters that are at right angles, all that's really on display here, I think. And I think if you're a fan of Wes Anderson, you will probably like this movie quite a bit, or at least the technical craft of it.
Yeah, real quick before we move off the camera movement and stuff, I wanted to ask you guys a question. Do they break the 180-degree rule here? Because sometimes when it cuts and it changes, it does feel a little disorientating, but not in a bad way necessarily, but you kind of have to reorient yourself where everybody is in the room.
I don't know that I came across that feeling at any point in the movie.
Yeah. And to clarify for anybody who doesn't know, like the 180 degree, that's like when two characters are talking to each other, you stay on one side of the conversation so that like one character is always looking to the right and the other character is always looking to the left, so you don't get confused on who's looking where.
Yeah, otherwise known as like don't cross the line.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this movie does or doesn't. I think there's so few shots that when it does cut, it can be jarring because some scenes are sitting on one shot for so long.
Okay.
Well, that and there's no over the shoulders. And over the shoulders are usually where that line comes from.
That's true. That's interesting.
Over the shoulders also help. They help like orient you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they give you like the line where you can see the two people in the same frame at the same time, whereas here it's all wide shots or like single shots and like medium close-ups and stuff because there's no over-the-shoulder shots to be had anywhere in the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think you're real right on that. And I also think that one thing that he does that's very interesting to me, and this goes to pacing a little bit, is that it seems like when scenes end or when a shot ends, whatever's happening in it, like I almost feel like we should cut, but the shot or the scene holds on like an extra second or two, like just a few more moments than like a more modern film would. And I really liked that a lot of the times because it gave me those like couple extra seconds to really think about like where that scene ended and like where we were emotionally and like, or just like sit in the emotion that scene was making me feel. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out, that I noticed that a lot. Did you guys feel that at all?
Yes.
Definitely. I definitely did. And another thing that made me think of that is the performances from the actors. And this kind of goes with the melodramaticness that we said is kind of lacking in a good way. Every time something sad happens and we start to feel emotions, it's not telegraphed in the performances, and it's not telegraphed in the camera work or the music. It's entirely subtle and internal and within you, right? Like, we see these children not treating their parents right, and we see them complaining about them, and we know it hurts the parents, but they always take it in stride. You know, they never try to make anyone feel bad about it. They never, there's never a dramatic scene where like they hang their head and like pack their bags, you know? They're just like, well, we better get out of here. Yep, they're busy, you know? And that adds to the tragedy in a way that I think is so much worse than if they had been like, our kids don't want us here, let's leave, and there's a big plot about that, or like them trying to, you know, connect or something.
If they had tried to call someone out.
Yeah, it makes it all the more sad because they don't want to offend their kids because they're just happy to see them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the unspoken things that you think of, like when you think about the people that you're in close relationships with, whether that's like family or friends. You know, it's like there's things that you can worry about, right? Is like what are they thinking but not saying? Exactly,
and that's a lot of the subject matter in this movie. You know, the father even gets an entire scene hanging out with other fathers where they talk about basically the disappointments of being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like once your kids grow up and they become their own people, do you really like them? Are you proud of them? You know, like, are they making you proud? Are they cool people? You know, that is actually something that you don't really hear tackled a lot. Like, what if your kid grows up and he sucks?
Yeah. Yeah. They talk about how they'll just be endlessly greedy about how good their kids turned out. They just want more and more for their kids, and they have to stop it at some point, right?
Exactly.
They're never going to be happy with what their kids did.
Exactly. There's a whole dual mentality that he goes through in the movie where he's like, in one scene, you know, he's disappointed in his children because he wants them to be better and he wants them to be happier. And another time he's like, I'm insanely lucky. They're successful and they're healthy and they have their own families and this is my hang up, you know?
They're alive because then they have a son who died, right?
They had one son,
exactly.
and then I think the other father, like his two sons had died in the war.
Mm-hmm.
So he's lucky that
he's
they're
just
alive.
Like, I wish one of them had lived. Yeah. So, you know, you see different points of view for what it's like to age and view your children. At the same time, we are seeing the children view their parents as a burden, and neither side seems conniving or wrong. It's just human nature.
Yeah, that brings me to a point. I had a question that I wanted to ask you guys. Like, did you hate the kids, like the parents' kids in it? And if you did, should you?
I think, for me personally, there is the daughter. That is one that I can justify to myself for hating, because it seemed like, to me, her parents had already died before they even showed up. She was already thinking about that. She'd already moved past her parents as if they were dead, even though they were still alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think she's the most easily hateable. But also, I know a lot of people like her.
Right. It just felt like she was going through the motions of being sad, and she had already written them off.
Well, see, I agree that that's definitely a way to read it, but I'm kind of like with the widow character who's talking to the youngest daughter at the end of the movie, in that at one point I would have agreed with you, but I don't know that she deserves to be disliked that strongly, because I think one day she's going to look back and she is going to be extremely sad at all the missed opportunities she had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're supposed to be feeling that, right? I think one kid already starts to feel that way.
The one that was late?
Yeah, the one that was late, but then ultimately he goes back.
I kind of want to stay here on this scene because I think this is my favorite scene and the most emotional scene for me. And the way it's acted is unique and kind of enigmatic.
With the widow and the youngest daughter?
Yeah, the youngest daughter's upset that the rest of the siblings don't really care that much, or they just went back home.
Yeah, this is the obvious, most famous scene in the film.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Isn't life disappointing?
Yeah, and the way it's not, the lines aren't what, while they're very powerful, it's the way she delivers it, and it's both emotional and like, what does it mean to me, or what does it mean to you guys? Like, so she says it, isn't life disappointing, with this smile on her face, and you're just...
No, hang on. No, what it is the youngest daughter, she's saying, isn't life disappointing, because the widow is telling her that as you get older, this happens, right? And she may even eventually become a selfish, detached person who doesn't care about her parents as she gets older, in spite of herself, even though she doesn't want to be that way, because it just happens. Just like, because the youngest daughter's hating on the daughter that's easy to dislike, you know? And she's saying, when I was your age, I thought that too, but as you get older, I realize it happens, you know? And she says, I don't want to be that way. And she's like, well, me neither. And she says, isn't life disappointing? And then the widow smiles, and she says, yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Thanks for clarifying that. But yeah, the way she says it and
that
agrees
smile.
with it, that smile is just like, wow, that's... In any other movie, I feel like that scene plays out and they're like very emotionally, right? But in this, they're just sitting there talking to each other, and then she just has this... It's almost like a Mona Lisa smile, like, because it's...
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. What does that mean to you guys?
It means we are... I don't know what it means, but ultimately, what this movie makes me feel about humans is we are ultimately selfish by nature, and I think it's completely impossible to appreciate what you have while it's here. But you will one day. But it'll be too late, and you'll just be looking back in retrospect. That's kind of... I don't know if that's what everything that's intended, but that's always what I take, both times. It just ultimately made me very sad. Just melancholy. And it kind of all flooded up in that one scene, you know? Like, kind of an overwhelming wave of emotion as soon as that scene hits. Almost like I was going to cry, but I didn't, you know? But it was real close. But it just seemed like someone had dropped a truth bomb on me or something like that. You know? And it was just like, I can't unhear it. And so basically I think it's just like, we try to be social, we try to be good, but ultimately, you know, we're selfish creatures. We're just animals who are smart enough to try to, like, know we should be better, but it's just not in our nature.
Yeah, and the widow she's not actually a member of the family other than through marriage, right? And
yeah, from the dead son.
Yeah, so I kind of took the smile as a bit more omniscient. Like, she's a more omniscient character, like able to observe the family from a distance. You know, looking at the different things. And the youngest one is, like you said, she's, you know, upset with her older siblings for...
She herself is not jaded yet.
Yeah, and I think the widow knows. She's like, you're too close. Like, I see everything that's going to happen. And I think that's what that smile is about.
Yeah, like, it's happening to me now. It will happen to you. It's already happened to them.
It's almost just like, isn't that cute that you're so innocent now to be, like, angry at them for that?
Right, and it's almost like, isn't life disappointing? And the smile is almost like that of a teacher teaching her math, right? It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Be prepared now, you know? Like, it's not going to get better from here.
But, I mean, that sounds really bleak when we're saying
But like I said, it's not melodramatic, so it feels more honest and true than it feels sad.
Yeah. The movie didn't leave me like feeling bleak or bummed out or
no. Like I mentioned earlier, it made me want to be better. Right? It made me want to like call my family members and like and talk to them.
Yeah.
Tell them thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you guys a question, and I don't have like any deep thought about this. I just wanted to know if you guys had a take on it, or if this was like actually in the movie and I just missed it. But when the mother and father are leaving, and she gets sick on the train and has to stop where the other son is that they hadn't seen yet, is that her intentionally faking sick at the spot where they have to get off to see their other son, or was that sort of like a pure chance that she happened to get sick and they got off at the stop with the son?
I don't know that it's a fake, but I definitely think maybe she was like, well, if I don't get off here, there is no seeing him again. She said goodbye to her other sons when she left Tokyo and was like, I won't be coming back this way again, So there was definitely I could think she could sense it coming.
She says it very early in the film to the young boy, like, I guess I will never see what you become,
Right.
Oh, yeah, when she's trying to connect with her grandkid. He's just not having it.
Yeah. Oh, man. That, like, when she says that thing, and then when she's in the train getting ready to leave, and she's like, this may be the last time that you see us. That's one of those spots that, like, really hit home for me, because, like, I guess it was, like, 2 years before my grandfather passed away. My grandparents both got all the kids like Christmas cards, right? And like in it they were like, this may be our last Christmas, so like we just wanted to let you know that we love you or whatever, right? And so like I've like heard those before, right? So like
Jesus.
That's one of those moments that really made me reflect for a while. Like, so that I was thinking maybe that's why like I missed what happened with her being sick.
Right.
Yeah, one of the moments that got me was whenever the son pulls the father aside and the sister aside, and he's like, she probably is not going to live through tomorrow, basically.
Right.
And the father's like, so this is the end. And he has that moment where he's not really talking to anyone but himself. And he's kind of looking off in like the middle ground.
Yeah. Doesn't he repeat it like 4 or 5 times, that line?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like that scene, I think is probably the second most emotional scene other than the life is disappointing. I think because I've seen that before. And, I saw my grandfather die and I was in the hospital, and I saw my grandmother there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same for me.
Yeah. And when you've spent decades with someone, most of your life with someone, and then you have to see them reevaluate how they're going to continue living for the rest of their days. It's emotional, man. Yeah. I don't know. Like that scene got me a lot this time around.
His performance is so understated. There's the version of it where he's like, no, why? And is very upset. But it's just so, well, I guess that's it. And that, to me, that's in those same situations that you guys have been in, that I've been in, that's how it plays out. Yeah. I guess this is the end. And it's just like,
I have to accept this.
Yeah.
I can't, crying won't do anything, or flailing about won't do anything. Like, I have to be calm and just move forward,
I can't believe this is happening, and it's like your brain can't even process it, and it's so well done and shown so well in this movie.
And it's from 1953, right? So like, we're not that different. We're not that further along, despite like all our technology and knowledge that we have access to, right? And understanding of the world, like.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this movie timeless, and what makes it so great is it transcends culture, it transcends decade. It is entirely just human nature, right? We know that it's true because we feel it ourselves when we're watching it.
It doesn't matter how much we change on the outside, the stuff that happens on the inside will never change, and that's the ultimate truth, and that's why this movie is so universal. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I also wonder if part of it is like an evolutionary necessity for us, right? Like we get older and the world is so overwhelmingly sad and bleak and dark. Maybe it's like a defense mechanism for our minds to like move on from certain things. Like we have to like keep up relationships for those relationships to stay strong. And if we don't, we kind of move on in our own heads. And no matter how close we once were, people can drift apart. And you can become your own person with your own life. So I wonder if, like, there's a certain part of human nature that just has to do that. Otherwise, we would be sad all the time at all the stuff we lost.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah, I know. The movie made me think of it. I don't know.
I don't mean, it's like, you got to move on because, like,
you got to move forward, basically.
Yeah. Because, like, I find myself thinking back to, like, certain periods of my life, and it may not necessarily be, like, family members or that sort of thing, but even just, like, moments in my life, like, time periods in my life that lasted a couple of years where I was doing, like, a certain thing or working, like, a certain job or had, like, a particular hobby, right? And, like, I think back to those times and, like, you know what? I'm never going to do that again, right? I'm never going to live in that house, right? Like, Mike, you and I used to live in a house together, right? And it was a pretty rad time.
Yes.
And it's like, we're never going to live in that house again, right?
Not unless things go real weird for us in the next few years.
I know. And and you can, like, I can think about that stuff and, like, get sad that, like, that experience is over and I'll never feel it again. But, like, we just move forward. And you have to move forward. Otherwise, because I think you're right. Like, you can get overwhelmed.
Exactly. And there's a certain defense mechanism we have to put up within ourselves. Otherwise, we would always be living in the past. There's a Townes Van Zandt lyric from a song called I'll Be Here in the Morning. And it says, there's no prettier sight than looking back at a town you left behind. And I think that is so true. It also reminds me of a quote from The Office, the American Office, where I think it's Andy says something along the lines of, like, I wish you could recognize the good times when you're in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Something along those lines. So basically, it's that same mentality is what I'm trying to get across, right? Which is that, like, things are always better when you look back on them. And in the moment, we are so caught up in ourselves that I don't know if it's possible for us to appreciate it. I just don't know that we can.
Yeah, it's too much self-awareness.
Right. I think that's why I don't hate the daughter. I think she's living life and going through life the best way she can. But I don't know that it's vindictive, or if you ask her, I think she would say she loves her mom and her dad, you know?
Yeah, I think she does.
But it's in her own selfish way, because we all have to be selfish, because, man, watching your parents age and die is not fun.
Well, this episode got really strangely philosophical and dark.
I mean, it's Tokyo Story.
Yeah.
It had to.
Yeah.
And it's not that dark. I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, I'm not sad.
It isn't. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where we go on this review from there. I think that's a good place to end it. Unless you guys have anything else?
No, I think it is time to move into the poll for the next Criterion.
Yeah, so for our poll to choose the next Criterion film that we're going to be reviewing, we are going to go with a sort of holiday theme. And basically, we're each going to pick a Criterion film that we do not own, but we really want to own the Criterion version of it. So... you know, holidays is time for, like, gift giving. So if anybody listening wants to give us a gift, this is a good list.
Yeah. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
It's a place to start, really.
All right. And obviously the winner that you guys choose on the poll, we'll have it on Twitter all throughout the week. So listen, vote, and whichever one wins will be the movie we review next on the next Casually Criterion episode in late December or January at some point.
Okay. So... Mike, do you want to go with your pick first?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So a Criterion film that I really want this holiday season is a movie that I have not seen in HD. I've only ever seen it on my DVD copy a few years back. And that is my favorite David Lynch movie, Mulholland Drive.
Nice.
This movie is a crazy, wacky riddle. It's dark. It's well acted, it's hokey, it's corny, it's sexy, it's disturbing, it's everything.
It's true. It's one of the few films that I watched and finished, and then I like immediately watched it again. I think like the next night, because I just had to see it again.
Yeah, it's a hard film to shake.
That's something.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so that is me with Mulholland Drive, written and directed by David Lynch. Justin, what movie do you want this holiday season?
I'm going with a relatively new release from the Criterion Collection. I think it's maybe been out for a week, maybe two. But this is a film I've seen once because it was one of my film school buddies' like favorite films, and it's True Stories from David Byrne. I almost said David Lynch because of Mulholland Drive, but it's from David Byrne, who is the lead singer of the Talking Heads, and it's kind of this very quirky, weird musical that's like colorful and sort of like bizarre. Like if you've ever seen any Talking Heads stuff, it's kind of in that same realm. And I've only seen it once. It's been, probably 7-8 years. No, less than that, 6 maybe. But anyways, I don't remember a ton about it other than I just had a blast watching the movie. Like I thought it was super fun, and there's a lot of like really great musical numbers and just weird stuff in it. And I want to watch it again, to talk about on the podcast. And I also want the Blu-ray that's out now because it looks awesome.
Yeah, that is a film is on my list, and I want to watch that movie very badly. I have not seen
it yet.
Me too. Yeah.
I like the Talking Heads.
Yeah, me too. I didn't realize how much I like the Talking Heads until I watched True Stories, and it made me start listening to some of their other music, and it's good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, or at least I was in high school, and still am, fans of bands like Modest Mouse and even the Pixies in certain songs. So Talking Heads fits right into there.
Yeah.
So cool.
All right. So
what about Chris?
Yeah. So for Christmas, I would like a little film starring Alain Delon, directed by Jean-Pierre Melville, called Le Samurai. I really love this movie. I've seen it before, but Alain Delon, or however you pronounce his name, is so cool in this movie. Unflappable, like a lot like Clint Eastwood in his movies. Just a really great movie. I love all of Jean-Pierre Melville's films. So
more of a pretty boy than Clint Eastwood, though. That's still cool.
I was looking at a picture of him the other day, and he reminded me a lot of like the same kind of pretty that Zac Efron is. If we're gonna make a modern comparison.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking of like a Jared Leto type.
Sure. Yeah.
But Alain Delon's cooler than both those guys.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
At least Jared Leto. I don't know about Zac Efron.
Jared Leto's not cool.
Debatable.
Zac Efron seems like he might be a cool dude to hang out with, but he also seems like he may not be.
He's not as cool as Alain Delon. Alain Delon, for sure. I put my foot down on that one. Anyways, I don't want to limit anybody. If you can get me any Jean-Pierre Melville film, and I'll be okay with it. But Le Samurai is one that I want to watch again for sure. So I'm excited about this. Hopefully it wins. Yeah. Although I don't mind watching any of the other two movies. So it's a win all around.
It's funny, actually, whenever I first started working at a Blockbuster when I was 19 years old, Chris was working there. And he was a big old movie nerd who knew about the Criterion Collection before I did. And he told me about the Criterion Collection. And he actually let me borrow Yojimbo, Sanjuro, and Le Samurai. And those were the first 3 movies. And I watched Le Samurai. That was one of the first Criterion Collection films I had ever seen. So I just think it's cool that you chose that this time, because I wanted to bring that up and say, I don't know if you remember, but you let me borrow that DVD.
Nice. Well,
so thanks.
That makes me feel special. You're welcome.
And you're nothing if not consistent, apparently.
Yeah, I guess I love that movie. That's all I got to say. It's been a long time. I didn't realize it's been that long since I've loved that movie.
Yeah, we're old.
Cool. All right, so to recap, just real quick, that's Mulholland Drive, Le Samurai, and True Stories that will be your choices for the Criterion poll. So, go to our Twitter, go to our Facebook, and vote on which film you want us to review next.
Yeah, it will be up by the time this episode is out, and it will be up probably for about a week.
And also, sidebar, now I know what to get you guys for Christmas. That's why I chose this theme, just to get a Christmas list for you guys. Very
damn it, you have a leg up on us now.
Yeah, but what if Mike gets us the same things? We're just going to get 2 copies of everything? So, we'll each have
exchange
3
it for
copies
another
of what we want.
Criterion movie. Yeah. It's a win-win.
Cool.
I should have picked the Bergman box set. That's all I have to say. If that was going to be Christmas,
we can't review that in an episode. It's too much.
Yeah, Chris kept trying to choose 8-hour movies and box sets and TV shows for the thing he wanted for Christmas, but I
was just trying to be honest, guys.
We had to actually go out of our way to specifically request that he stop doing that so that we could actually watch something and review it for the show in time.
Chris just has expensive taste, is what it comes down to.
Well, when it's other people's money, for
He
sure.
likes to treat himself.
Yes.
Or have us treat himself.
Yeah. Well said. I think that does it for this episode. Anybody got anything else?
No. I think I should get off the microphone.
Go out on top, I say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And of course, as always, thanks Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. You can hear more of his music at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Stay tuned for our next episode. We will have a special guest because Justin will be out of town, venturing to New York City.
Woo! I'm excited.
And so we will have a guest or two on the podcast. Not sure, but we're working on something special. Don't know what we're going to see. It has to be kind of whatever everyone can get to the theaters to see in time. So just stay tuned to this channel and we will give you something nice.
Yeah, and if you want to recommend anything that we see, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and, tag us or send us posts on there or whatever and let us know what you think we should watch next week.
Absolutely. Feedback is always appreciated, and that's all I've got. I hope everyone has a good night.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.